Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of the Cuphead show. Okay, so this episode is, well, it's interesting. So, essentially, the conflict of this episode is that, Mugman, Cuphead, Mugman kind of have a falling out about whether they're not one is too reckless or one is too overbearing. So, and that's ultimately what happens. But the episode opens up with Cuphead and Mugman racing through the woods, and they're clearly in a panic about something. We don't find out until later, but eventually they do wind up at a cliff, and they realize that they're not going to be able to get to the city this way, and that they're never going to make it to the to what they're going to be on time. And what we find out is that it's actually just a movie, and it's at this point where Cuphead reveals that he actually does have a trick up his sleeve, and pulls out his homemade jetpack, which of course looks very much like a rocket, and Mugman even comments on that. And of course, at this point where he points out that there's no real difference, and it's at this point where Mugman points out that maybe it's not all that safe to ride, but of course Cuphead doesn't really listen and ropes him in on it anyway, and they get ready to launch, and with Cuphead pointing out with Mugman asking if it's safe, and Mugman of course pointing out that it isn't, and as they're about to launch, Mugman winds up putting it out with the milk in his cup, and of course points out that, and of course Cuphead then proceeds to yell at Mugman for that, asking him why he did that, and of course Mugman just points out that obviously it's not very safe, and that's a little too dangerous, and of course is this one where Cuphead points out that Mugman is kind of being like the fun police right now. And Mugman points out that that's how he feels, and they can actually always just look for another brother. And it's at this point where Cuphead actually gets an idea to go look for another brother, which of course Mugman is a little surprised about, because he didn't think Cuphead was going to take that seriously. But of course Cuphead points out that obviously he just needs to find someone who's a little bit more like him and is more willing to do dangerous stuff. And just tells Mugman that obviously since he's too overbearing and too unwilling to do dangerous things, that he's gonna look for somebody who would actually do those things with him. So with that, he then proceeds to go to the park and do exactly that. But what we quickly find out is that all the people already have brothers to play with. There's even a cameo of Ribby and Croaks where they're playing on the seesaw. But he starts looking around, pointing out that all the other brothers seem to be taken. At which we see somebody flying through on a bicycle and doing a bunch of crazy and outrageous stunts. And of course he has no idea who that is, but knows that whoever it is, that needs to be his new brother right away. So he immediately runs after the person to try and find him. And of course he eventually runs into Bull Boy, who has appeared as a cameo in a previous episode, but this is his first major appearance, so I'm going to be picturing him now. Of course, what we find out is that Bull Boy, he is apparently the source of the stunts, even though Cuphead doesn't believe him at first. But after Bull Boy gives him a brief demonstration, Cuphead realizes pretty quickly that this guy is actually the exact person he was looking for. And Bull Boy points out that there's a lot of things that he doesn't know about him, and then proceeds to demonstrate a bunch of other dangerous, crazy stunts, including one with the crossbow, and that he's always got a trick up his sleeves. And then Cuphead points out they liked all those things, and asks him to show him a trick. So Bull Boy proceeds to turn around, and then proceeds to turn her back around with dynamite in his mouth, and spits it back at Cuphead, who chucks it into the woods nearby, and it blows up. But and points out that Bull Boy nearly killed him, but does point out that obviously that makes him feel perfect to be his brother, and agrees to be his brother, and of course Bull Boy tells him that he'd be happy to, but it's very obvious that Bull Boy is very dangerously unhinged, and even points that out that Cuphead should always be willing to note that Bull Boy always has a few tricks up his sleeve. But Cuphead agrees to that, and then they proceed to go on a bit of a thing where they do a bunch of increasingly dangerous stunts. As it turns out, Bullboy is more than happy to follow Cuphead along and help and do all of the things he never got to do with Mugman. But also what we find out is that he's very dangerously unhinged. Case in point, they were riding on a subway at one point, on a train at one point, and Bullboy knocks out the conductor so he'll land on the thing and to make the train go faster. And that winds up being very dangerous. And also he winds up going for the spiciest option for spice foot for hot sauce, which winds up being a big problem. Meanwhile, Mugman is initially happy about the fact that he doesn't really have any sort of negative influence in his life, because initially he's very happy about that because it means that he can go through his entire day without getting injured or harmed in any sort of significant way. And is initially very happy about that. And starts reading a book, but then he sees Cuphead barge in while he's reading, who is very happy about the fact that he has a new brother, and even though Mugman is also obviously very visibly confused as all that, and also Cuphead asks him where they keep the gunpowder, and of course he points out it's the same place they've always been, between the flour and the sugar, and of course Cuphead takes the huge thing, and he then reveals that he's actually going to go rebuild a new jetpack with his new brother, even though Mugman is obviously very visibly upset about all of that, and obviously thinks that Mugman, and obviously realizing that Cuphead has since moved on, decides to actually now find a new brother of his own. So, and the first person he tries is the mailman, who he proceeds to bake a pie for. And the mailman is a giant pencil man, of course. But the mailman doesn't really have any sort of interest in Mugman, pointing out that he's just really happy to go and go and deliver the mail. But and when Mugman doesn't leave him alone, repeatedly asking him how it sounds, but when he says their names together, the mailman decides to back away and run back to his truck. And when Mugman follows him into the truck, he kicks him out and drives off as quickly as he can. But undeterred, Mugman then proceeds to go on to to kind of create auditions for a new brother, revealing that there's actually a line going right out the door, and he then winds up telling everybody that that if they want to audition for his brother, they need to have a song and 2 monologues prepared. At which point Cuphead shows up holding hands with Bullboy and asks Mugman what he's doing. And when Mugman sees Cuphead and Bullboy holding hands, he immediately has a panic attack and immediately tells Cuphead and immediately yells at Cuphead for replacing him with Bullboy, which of course Cuphead points out that he's also a very good brother to have around, and that they're in the middle of actually building a new rocket to actually go and take out, and of course Cuphead is just happy to be able to do that with somebody, while Mugman, of course, is obviously very upset about the fact that he's been replaced with Bullboy with all people. And of course he winds up angry. He then decides to just grab the first person that's online, a light bulb, which he then proceeds to bring in to play a game of chess. But what we'll quickly find out is that this guy is very, very, very much a nervous wreck about even the most harmless of activities. Even pointing out that in that particular relationship, Mugman is in fact the loose cannon, because they sit down to play a basic game of checkers. The guy freaks out and runs right out of the house. So which causes Mugman to rethink some things. Meanwhile, Cuphead and Bullboy have actually reassembled the rocket. Although Cuphead starts to note that it actually doesn't seem all that safe. And Bullboy asks him, and then Bullboy points out that Mugman would never actually let him do any of these sorts of things. And although Cuphead points out that he also feels like this is a little bit dangerous. But in any case, he decides to go forward with the rocket, and they decide to strap themselves to it and get ready to launch themselves. But then it's revealed that Bullboy decides to have a bit of a confession, revealing that actually he's never done any of this dangerous stuff before. And of course, when Cuphead is very visibly confused and very visibly shocked at that, he pointing out that obviously Bullboy did a whole bunch of other stunts. He then reveals that actually he just wanted to be whatever Cuphead would like, and also not so subtly implies that he would like to eventually learn from Cuphead and eventually become Cuphead, which causes Cuphead to eventually realize that maybe it's time to cut his losses and unties himself from the rocket. And when Bullboy asks him where he's going, he points out that he's not going to get shattered with him. Although But of course, Bullboy asks him why he would do that, pointing out that they're supposed to be brothers. And of course, but it's at this point where the rocket flies off. And of course, as Mugman was worried about, he winds up Bullboy winds up flying over the gorge. It explodes, and then he falls into the gorge and shatters into pieces. And then when Cuphead looks over to check to see if he's okay, a piece of cliff winds up tumbling off, and a rock hits Bullboy into what's left of his face and breaks it. And of course, Cuphead quickly realizes that maybe Mugman being a little bit overbearing wasn't such a bad thing after all. At which point Mugman runs in with another homemade rocket and tells Cuphead that he's changed his mind, that he wants to be reckless and dangerous, and then pulls Cuphead into a fierce hug and lights the fuse. Even though Cuphead adamantly tells him not to. And then they proceed to fly over the gorge, and it's at this point where Cuphead decides to tell Mugman that he was right, and he realizes now that it was okay for Mugman to be overbearing, and they realize this too late as the rocket runs out of fuel and lands them in the gorge, and then proceed to spend however long it was in the hospital, where the two are now in a full body cast. And Cuphead decides to have a bit of a heart-to-heart with Mugman, telling him that he realizes now that the whole finding a new brother type thing was actually just a really bad idea. But also points out the much more obvious lesson that he's learned, and that Mugman is not just his brother, but his best friend, and that Mugman is essentially irreplaceable. And Mugman returns the sentiment to Cuphead and tells him that if they weren't in full body cast, they would obviously hug each other. Then their doctor comes in, and it's revealed to be Bullboy, who actually survived falling off the cliff and is once again demonstrates that he's completely unhinged. And of course, he then proceeds to walk in and tells them that he has always got one last trick up his sleeve, and then pulls out a needle, and that's where the episode ends. So, yeah, this episode just kind of demonstrates that, well, first and foremost, it demonstrates that, yes, Cuphead and Mugman do have an unbreakable bond that keeps where they kind of have a symbiotic relationship. Obviously, Cuphead is very much the loose cannon, while Mugman is very much the voice of reason and keeps Cuphead from doing anything too dangerous. So the two kind of need each other, as otherwise Mugman is just boring on his own, and Cuphead gets way too overambitious for his own good. And also this episode kind of demonstrates that Bullboy is kind of a little bit dangerous, and he's probably one of the more dangerous characters in this that isn't the devil. So yeah, for that reason, I'm a little bit scared of Bullboy a little bit. That's kind of the point of this episode. We find out that Bullboy is just dangerous and that nobody should actually want to be friends with him. But in case, that's gonna do it for my review of the Cuphead show. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And also, be sure to check out my Twitch as well. I'm trying to push for affiliate over there. So if you guys want to absolutely follow me over there and watch my stream so that I can push for affiliate, by all means, please go check me out. Again, link is down in the description. Just go check that out. Go watch the streams. That's just all I ask you to do. Just go watch the streams when they go live. That's all I want. And also, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this video. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. And also, while you're here, if you want a recommendation from me, I recommend checking out my playthrough of Cuphead. Since I'm currently working through the DLC, I'm not very good at working through the DLC right now because the DLC is hard as hell, but I'm slowly working through it. I'm doing as much progress as I can, but it does get frustrating because I record an hour-long episode, I barely make any progress, and then I get depressed and don't want to record more of it. So yeah, if you want to know why my coverage of it has been on and off, that would be why. It's because it's very difficult, and I sometimes get upset that I am not doing as good at the game as I would like to be. But in any case, yeah, just go check that out. Link again, you can find it pretty easily. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.